In Evergreen Bay, a peaceful coastal town where everyone believes death seals all secrets, a 70-year-old widow receives a phone call that shatters everything. "I'm still alive. Don't trust our daughter." When the dead speak, what truth is hiding beneath the waves? This is her quiet comeback. If this kind of story speaks to you, feel free to subscribe and tell me where you're listening from. Now, let's begin. Evelyn Cooper, had lived her whole life believing Evergreen Bay was the safest place in the world. A place where the wind carried the scent of pine and salt, where neighbors greeted each other by first name no matter how many years had passed, and where secrets, when they existed at all, rarely survived longer than a fishing season. But the morning after her husband Harold's funeral, safety became a memory. The day began quietly enough. The sky was still gray from night, and the gulls had only just begun their slow, circular dance above the harbor. Evelyn wrapped her shawl tight around her shoulders as she stepped onto the porch, rubbing her hands against the cold. Her grief was strange, sharp, but not loud. Harold had been her companion for almost 50 years, the man who built toys for neighborhood kids, who left notes in her lunch bag even in their 70s. Losing him felt like losing her anchor. She sat heavily in her rocking chair, ready to let the morning pass in stillness. But then her phone rang. The number was hidden. She considered letting it ring, but her gut tugged. Something about the quiet felt wrong. She answered. A voice, broken, muffled, familiar in a way that shattered her breath, whispered, "Evie, he's still alive. Don't trust Melissa." The world tilted. Her grip tightened until her fingers hurt. "Harold? Harold? Is that—" The line went dead. Evelyn froze. Her pulse hammered so loudly she could barely hear the crashing waves. For several seconds she could do nothing but stare at the phone screen, her chest tightening with terror and disbelief. Shock didn't begin to cover it. Harold was gone, or had been gone, less than 48 hours. She had kissed his cold forehead. She had lowered flowers onto his casket. She had heard the minister's final prayer. So how could she hear his voice now? The possibility was impossible. Yet the familiarity had cut through her like lightning. The slight rasp he had after decades working in a machine shop, the way he stretched the Evie like he was smiling, the quiver only she ever heard when he was afraid. Her throat closed. "Harold," she whispered into the empty porch, "what are you trying to tell me?" Inside her chest, something cold and heavy settled, because if the voice was real, if Harold had somehow left a message before dying, then everything she thought she knew, the accident, the timing, the cause of death, could be wrong. Deeply, dangerously wrong. Evelyn stood slowly, knees trembling, and walked back into the house, walking the door even though no one was outside. Her eyes scanned the living room, the pictures on the mantel, the jacket Harold had worn just 3 days earlier. Everything looked familiar, but nothing felt safe anymore. By noon, Evelyn tried to breathe normally, but her chest wouldn't loosen. She replayed the call in her mind again and again. It felt like a memory she couldn't escape. She needed answers, something, anything, to tell her she wasn't losing herself in grief. She pulled out Harold's work jacket, still smelling faintly of engine oil and peppermint, and reached into the pockets, hoping for, she didn't even know what. A note? A clue? A sign he'd been trying to reach her? But the pockets were empty. Before she could put the jacket down, the front door opened. Melissa walked in. "Mom," she said too brightly, "why didn't you answer my texts? I've been calling." "I didn't hear them," Evelyn lied. Melissa looked annoyed for a second before smoothing her expression. "I came to talk about the paperwork Dad left behind. I need you to sign some things." Evelyn blinked. "So soon?" "Well, yes, it's important." Melissa placed a stack of documents on the table. "The house needs to be appraised. The shop, too. Dad would want us to move forward. Move forward? Harold had never rushed anything, especially not decisions about the house he built with his own hands. Evelyn's breath slowed. A suspicion, thin as fishing line, pulled tight inside her chest. She picked up the papers. Insurance modifications, property release forms, financial transfers. "Melissa," Evelyn asked softly, "why do you have these?" Melissa sighed dramatically. "Mom, please. Dad put me in charge of his affairs. You're grieving. You shouldn't deal with this right now." "But why didn't he tell me?" Melissa stiffened. Because he knew you'd get overwhelmed. He told me to handle it." A lie. Evelyn didn't know how she knew, but she knew. Harold never made decisions without her. Not for 50 years. Something twisted inside Evelyn's stomach. Something deeper and sharper than suspicion. Fear. If Harold had known something was wrong before he died, if he tried to warn her, if Melissa was involved, what exactly had happened in the hours leading up to Harold's so-called accident? Melissa slid the papers closer. "Mom, sign them, please." Evelyn pushed the stack away slowly. "I need time." Melissa frowned. "Time for what? Dad would want this done." "I said I need time." A flash of anger, quick, sharp, crossed Melissa's face. It lasted less than a second, but Evelyn saw it. The coldness, the impatience. The crack in the perfect daughter mask. Melissa forced a tight smile. "Fine, but don't take too long. We can't delay the sale." "The sale?" Evelyn repeated. Melissa froze. "You already found a buyer?" Melissa's mouth opened, then closed. "Mom, you're imagining things." But Evelyn wasn't imagining anything. She was remembering. The call. The warning. The fear in Harold's voice. "Don't trust Melissa." Her heart stuttered. "Get out," Evelyn whispered. Melissa blinked. "What?" "Get out of my house." Melissa stared at her for a long moment before quietly gathering her purse. "Fine. I'll come back when you're thinking clearly." When the door shut, Evelyn felt her whole body shake. She knew what she had to do next. If she wanted the truth, real truth, she had to start looking where no one else wanted her to look. And she had to do it alone. She took a trembling breath and whispered into the stillness. "If you're still here with me, listening as I try to follow every clue Harold left, tap like so this story can find others who felt these quiet, terrifying shifts in their own lives." Outside, the waves crashed harder. Inside, Evelyn's world was just beginning to unravel. Evelyn Cooper moved through the next morning like she was walking inside someone else's life, one where nothing fit quite right anymore. Evergreen Bay looked the same from the outside, seagulls drifting above the harbor, fishermen hauling in their early catch, the smell of sea breeze mixing with pine. But inside her chest, something had shifted, and the world no longer felt steady beneath her feet. She made coffee out of habit, not desire. The mug trembled in her hand as she sat at the kitchen table, staring at the empty chair across from her, the chair where Harold used to sit every morning, whistling off-key, complaining about the weather, promising he'd fix the loose hinge tomorrow. Tomorrow had run out faster than either of them expected. But the phone call, the voice, the warning. It had carved a hollow inside her that no amount of logic could fill. As the steam faded from her coffee, Evelyn opened the old wooden toolbox Harold kept under the stairs. She never went near it. It was his domain, his treasured mess of screws, bolts, and scattered memories. But today she felt something, an instinct, a tug, telling her to look. Inside, beneath layers of dusty tools, she found a small metal tin she didn't recognize. Her breath caught. It was light. Too light. She opened it. Inside was a USB drive, just sitting there, quiet. waiting. A chill crept from her fingertips up her spine. Harold wasn't a man of secrets. He was simple in the most comforting way. He didn't hide things unless he had a reason. She plugged the USB into her laptop with trembling hands. There were 3 files, a folder labeled Pictures, a voice memo, and a draft document titled Change of Will, Questions. Her vision blurred. She opened the pictures first. Photos of Melissa. Not smiling family photos. Photos of Melissa meeting a man outside a bank. Melissa exchanging envelopes. Melissa handing over a document with Harold's name on it. Then came pictures of paperwork, loan forms bearing Harold's forged signature. Forged. She knew her husband's handwriting like she knew her own breath. Her heartbeat quickened painfully. She clicked the voice memo. Harold's voice, tired, frightened, filled the kitchen. Evie, if you're hearing this, it means I've lost track of her. Melissa, she's mad at me for not signing the loan papers. I saw something strange in her eyes. If anything happens to me, don't trust anyone until you've checked the records. Evelyn clasped a hand over her mouth as tears spilled hot down her cheeks. She hadn't cried like this, raw and broken, since the night Harold died. Her daughter, her only child, her baby girl. The realization hit like a wave collapsing onto cold rocks. Melissa had been hiding things. Lying, manipulating, and now? Evelyn saw it for the first time, not as a mother, but as a woman being deceived. She clicked the text document. The last line Harold had typed said, M needs to be protected from her. Something is coming. And just like that, something inside Evelyn cracked. Not quietly, not gently, but with an ache so deep it stole the air from her lungs. The emotional pain hit her like a blow to the ribs. Her daughter, the girl she raised alone after Harold worked double shifts, the girl she nursed through fevers, the girl she protected from every hurt, had walked into danger and dragged her parents with her. The betrayal cut sharper because it came from love, from trust, from blood. Evelyn sank into her chair, shoulders trembling. She felt the weight of 50 years of motherhood collapse into a single devastating truth. Melissa was not the victim she pretended to be. Melissa had been playing a role Evelyn never saw through. And Evelyn hated herself for not seeing it sooner. The front door opened. Evelyn stiffened. Melissa stepped in, holding a grocery bag. Mom? I brought you soup. Soup? After demanding she sign legal documents the day before? Evelyn wiped her face quickly. Thank you. Melissa set the bag down. Are you okay? You look tired. I'm grieving, Evelyn said softly. Of course, Melissa answered, but her tone lacked sympathy. Which is why it's important we finish Dad's paperwork. I booked an appraisal for the house this afternoon. Evelyn's breath hitched. You did what? She whispered. It's for the best, Melissa insisted. We need to sell while the market's good. No, Evelyn said, voice shaking. No, Melissa, we don't. Melissa's eyes hardened. We do. She pulled out a folder. And you're signing this today. Evelyn saw the same forms from yesterday. Property release, insurance transfers. Melissa pushed them toward her. Sign them, Mom. Something inside Evelyn broke. She saw past Melissa's practiced expressions, past the soft voice and carefully chosen words, and saw the truth Harold had feared. Melissa was desperate, not to help, but to take. She stood slowly. Where were you the day your father died? Melissa froze. What kind of question is that? A real one. Melissa's jaw tensed. I was at work. No, Evelyn shook her head. I checked. You weren't. Melissa's mask slipped, just for a moment, but Evelyn caught it, a flicker of panic. Mom, you're confused. I'm grieving, Evelyn repeated, not confused. Melissa swallowed hard. Let's not do this. But Evelyn pressed on, voice trembling. Your father was alive when he was put in the ambulance. The report said so. Melissa stepped back as if she'd been slapped. Evelyn continued, tears gathering again. And then methanol showed up in his blood, something that wasn't there before. Melissa's eyes widened. The silence thickened, heavy, suffocating. Finally, Melissa whispered, Mom, please don't make this harder. Evelyn's voice broke. Did you hurt your father? Melissa didn't answer, and her silence was worse than any confession. Evelyn's heart shattered. Her daughter, her sweet, stubborn, long-lost daughter, standing right there, not denying the unthinkable. A sob escaped her. Melissa stepped forward. Mom, we can fix everything. We can start over. Evelyn backed away. Get out. What? Get out now. Melissa stared at her mother as if seeing her for the first time, someone who could no longer be controlled. Then she turned and left without another word. The door clicked shut. Evelyn collapsed into her chair, gripping the edge to keep herself from falling apart completely. Her body shook. Her breath trembled. The emotional pain curled around her like a storm tide, cold, rising, merciless. She whispered into the empty house, If you're still here with me, if you feel this heartbreak the way I do, tap like so others can find their way to this story too. And for the first time in her life, Evelyn Cooper felt truly, painfully, devastatingly alone. Evelyn Cooper woke the next morning with a heaviness that felt different from grief. Deeper, sharper, alive. Grief pressed gently on the chest. This feeling clawed, it pushed, it warned. The truth she had uncovered in the last 24 hours was no longer a whisper. It was a rising tide flooding every quiet corner of her life. She moved slowly through the kitchen, her slippers sliding across the worn wooden floor. The house felt colder today, though the heater hummed steadily. Perhaps it wasn't the air, it was the absence, an absence Harold once filled simply by being in the room. The silence felt wrong, hollowed out. She poured herself coffee she didn't want and sat at the table. Before her, the laptop screen still showed the files she had opened the night before. Evidence. Secrets. Warnings. But it was the final line Harold had typed, the one she kept rereading, that pierced her every time. Evie needs to be protected from her. Something is coming. Something coming. She wrapped her hands around the mug, trying to steady her breath. The emotional wound from discovering the truth about Melissa had not healed overnight. If anything, it only widened as dawn settled over Evergreen Bay. Her daughter, her only child, capable of deception so deep it made Evelyn's skin shiver. She needed answers, real ones. She needed to understand how far the betrayal went and why. She needed to know what Harold saw in the final days of his life. And there was only one place to start. The man in the photographs, Bennett Clark. Evergreen Bay was small enough that if you drove slow, you could memorize the entire town in 15 minutes. But tucked near the edge of the coastal highway was a narrow strip of offices, insurance, tax prep, real estate, most of them quiet except for the one belonging to Clark Properties. When Evelyn pulled in, her heart thudded loudly against her ribs. She wasn't used to confronting strangers. She wasn't used to being suspicious. But the woman she had been 2 weeks ago was gone. She stepped out of the car and walked toward the frosted glass door. The bell above it jingled as she entered. Bennett Clark looked up from behind his desk. He was younger than she expected, maybe mid-40s, neatly dressed, handsome in a clean-cut corporate way. But there was something unsettling about how quickly he smiled when he saw her. "Mrs. Cooper," he said warmly, as if greeting an old friend. "I wondered when you'd come." Evelyn stiffened. "You know who I am?" Evergreen Bay is a small town. Everyone knows everyone. He gestured to the chair. Please, sit. She sat, hands clenched in her lap. I'm very sorry about Harold, Bennett said, voice soft with rehearsed sympathy. He was a good man. Her jaw tightened. You knew him? Not well. Mostly through business. He visited once about the property behind your house.
Bennett leaned forward. He said he was considering selling the land. Evelyn flinched.
That's not true. Harold would never.
I'm just telling you what he told me. She studied his face, searching for cracks in the persona he wore so easily.
Were you also helping my daughter? She asked quietly. For the first time, Bennett's smile faltered. Melissa came to me with questions. That's true. What kind of questions? He hesitated. Financial ones. About my property? Yes. About my husband? The hesitation grew thicker. Yes. Evelyn felt the turning point shift inside her like a tectonic plate. She was crossing from suspicion into truth, and once crossed, she knew she could never go back. What exactly did Melissa ask you, Mr. Clark? He inhaled slowly. She asked if there was a way for her father to sign over property rights while he was medicated. Evelyn felt the world tilt sideways. Her breath left her. Her fingers dug into the fabric of her coat. And what did you tell her? She whispered. That it would be illegal, he replied. Dangerous. Stupid. He lowered his voice. But she didn't seem bothered by that. Evelyn closed her eyes, fighting the sting behind them. This was the confirmation she feared, and the one she needed. Melissa had been willing to cross lines no daughter should ever cross. And Harold must have known, must have sensed the danger creeping too close. Must have seen the darkness Evelyn refused to see. Mrs. Cooper, Bennett's voice softened. I didn't help her. I swear it. But Melissa was desperate, scared, reckless, and whatever she was involved in, Harold realized it too late. Evelyn opened her eyes. Do you think Melissa had something to do with his death? Bennett didn't answer. He didn't have to. The silence was enough. It carved the final edge of the turning point deep into Evelyn's soul. She rose from her seat. Thank you, she murmured, voice breaking. As she turned to leave, Bennett said, Be careful, Mrs. Cooper. She paused. Why? Because Melissa isn't done trying. Those words clung to her long after she stepped back into the cold air. Driving home, the ocean wind whipped against her car. Clouds gathered low and heavy over the water. She couldn't remember the last time Evergreen Bay looked so gray, so unforgiving. Inside her house, the quiet felt different. No longer grief-heavy, but danger-heavy. She locked the door. Then she called the police. At first, she didn't know what to say. How did a mother accuse her own daughter of conspiracy, of fraud, of murder? But when the officer gently repeated, Ma'am, are you still there? She forced her voice steady. Yes, I need to report something. It's about my husband's death. It took nearly an hour to give her statement, walking them through every detail, every document, every photo, every word Harold left behind. The officer's voice grew more serious as the story unfolded. We'll need to reopen the case, he finally said. And we'll need copies of everything you found. I have them, Evelyn whispered. Mrs. Cooper, you're doing the right thing. She ended the call with trembling hands. The right thing, yes. She believed that. But the right thing hurt in a way she had never imagined. She walked into Harold's workshop, inhaling the scent of metal and sawdust. His jacket still hung on its hook. His tools were still scattered exactly as he left them. She touched the back of his old chair. Harold, she whispered, I'm doing what you wanted. I'm trying to protect us, but I never imagined it would be from our own daughter. Her voice cracked. Tears fell freely. I'm sorry, she breathed. I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner. The workshop swallowed her words whole. Evelyn stayed there until the sun dipped low, painting the windows with orange light. When she finally stood, she felt changed. Not healed. Not strong, but awake. Awake to the truth she had avoided. Awake to the danger closing in. Awake to the battle that was only beginning. She walked back into the house, wiped her cheeks, and whispered into the quiet. If you're still with me, if you felt this shift the way I have, tap like so this story can keep reaching the hearts it's meant to reach. The waves crashed harder against the shore, and Evelyn Cooper took her first step into the storm. Evelyn Cooper sat at her kitchen table the next morning, staring at the sunlight shifting across the floorboards like it was trying to guide her somewhere she hadn't yet dared to go. The storm inside her had settled just enough for her to breathe, but not enough for her to feel steady. What she had uncovered about Melissa and about Harold's final days felt less like answers and more like the beginning of a deeper maze. She held the USB drive in her palm, its weight small but immense with meaning. Harold had left it for a reason. He knew she would find it. He knew she would follow the trail. And now that she had taken her first steps, she could feel the path widening beneath her feet. The police had promised to reopen Harold's case, but promises couldn't quiet the dread rising in her chest. Evelyn had lived long enough to know that institutions moved slowly, painfully slowly, while danger moved fast. She wasn't going to sit still and wait. She needed more. More proof, more truth, more clarity about what had really happened in the hours before Harold's death. And she knew exactly where to begin. The hospital. Evergreen Bay Community Hospital was small, tucked neatly between the coastline and a row of old cedar trees. It was the kind of place where the nurses knew everyone by name, and the halls always smelled faintly of vanilla disinfectant. Evelyn had walked these hallways many times over the years, for stitches, flu shots, checkups, but today every step echoed with suspicion. At the front desk, a young woman with kind eyes greeted her. "Mrs. Cooper." "I'm so sorry for your loss. What can we do for you?" "I'd like to speak with whoever handled my husband's case the day he passed." The woman nodded sympathetically. "Let me see who's available." While she waited, Evelyn rubbed her hands together, fighting the tremor she couldn't quite control. Her reflection in the glass partition showed a woman aged not just by time, but by truth. Truth she didn't want, but could no longer ignore. A door opened. "Mrs. Cooper?" A middle-aged doctor in blue scrubs approached, his face etched with concern. "I'm Dr. Ramirez. I was involved in your husband's intake." Evelyn inhaled sharply. "Thank you for meeting with me." They walked to a private consultation room. Dr. Ramirez shut the door gently, then sat across from her. "What's troubling you?" he asked softly. Evelyn swallowed. "Doctor, my husband didn't die from the accident in the shop, did he?" Ramirez's expression shifted, barely, but enough. "Why do you ask?" Evelyn steadied her hands. "Because the report I received doesn't match what Harold told me the night before, and because I've found evidence he might have been harmed after he was already in the ambulance." Ramirez exhaled heavily, as if he had been holding this conversation inside for weeks. "Mrs. Cooper, when your husband arrived at the ER, we noticed inconsistencies." "Inconsistencies?" "His injuries were minor, superficial even. He was expected to recover, but his blood work showed high levels of methanol, and that wasn't consistent with anything we were told." Evelyn's chest tightened. "So he was poisoned." "We suspected it," Ramirez admitted. "But your daughter," he hesitated. "She told us Harold sometimes used chemicals improperly in his workshop. She insisted it must have been an accidental exposure." Evelyn felt a cold ripple through her muscles. Did you ever verify her story?" Ramirez shook his head slowly. She seemed distressed, convincing, and she demanded immediate release of the body before we completed a full tox screen. Evelyn's breath faltered. Why would you allow that? Because she said you both wanted a private burial, and because she signed the consent forms. The room suddenly felt too small, too warm, too heavy. My daughter lied, Evelyn whispered. Ramirez's eyes softened. Mrs. Cooper, I suspected something was wrong, but without authorization, our hands were tied. If you bring formal evidence, we can reopen the toxicology tests from stored samples. I've already turned everything over to the police, she said quietly. They're reopening the case. Ramirez nodded. Then we'll cooperate fully. I promise you that. Evelyn felt something shift inside her. Not relief, but resolve. Harold's voice, his final warning, was leading her closer to the truth. Outside the hospital, the wind had picked up, sweeping across the parking lot with an urgency she felt mirrored inside her. She tucked her coat tighter around her shoulders and began the walk back to her car, but a familiar voice stopped her. Mrs. Cooper? She turned. It was Deputy Marlowe, one of the officers who had responded the day Harold died. He approached her with cautious respect. I was hoping to catch you, he said. We reviewed the statement you provided, along with the evidence. We believe your concerns are valid. Evelyn exhaled shakily. Thank you. We're pulling the ambulance logs now, he continued, and we've issued a request for preserved toxicology samples. But we need to ask something difficult. I'm listening. Did Harold have enemies? Anyone who might want to harm him? Evelyn hesitated. Not Harold, but Melissa, her voice cracked. She wanted money. She wanted control, and she wanted her father's property signed away. Marlowe nodded grimly. That's consistent with some financial discrepancies we're seeing. Discrepancies? He opened his notepad. Loan applications, accounts under Harold's name, but with electronic signatures we can't confirm, and one request to transfer ownership of the shop filed 2 days before his death. Evelyn felt her breath stall. 2 days? Yes. Melissa filed that, Evelyn whispered. I know she did. We're looking into it, Marlowe said gently. If your daughter is involved, we will uncover it. Evelyn closed her eyes. This was no longer suspicion. This was confirmation. Piece by piece, the truth was unfolding. The discovery was painful, but it was real. And now she needed to decide how to move forward, how to protect herself while the investigation deepened. Deputy, she asked quietly, am I in danger? Marlowe didn't answer immediately. Let's just say, don't be alone with your daughter until we learn more. Evelyn nodded, heart thudding. I understand. As he walked away, she felt the wind push against her back, strong and insistent. A strange clarity flickered in her mind, a strategy forming, uninvited but necessary. She couldn't wait for more danger to come to her. She had to stay ahead of it. Back home, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the living room. Evelyn sat in Harold's armchair, grounding herself in the feeling of worn leather and familiar scents. She closed her eyes and allowed her thoughts to sharpen. If Melissa had manipulated medical staff, if she forged Harold's signature, if she had pressured him before his death, and if she was desperate enough to lie about every piece of paperwork, then Evelyn needed to prepare. She needed to secure every document in the house, make copies, record conversations, protect everything Harold had tried to leave behind. She went to the filing cabinet and pulled out folders. Insurance policies, property deeds, bank statements, titles, Harold's workshop inventory. Then she photographed each one, storing them on an external drive she tucked inside her coat. But she didn't stop there. She opened Harold's notebook, the one he always kept in the workshop. Inside were scribbled lists, measurements, reminders, and on one page, a cryptic note. Check the back panel. If anything happens, Evie must know. Evelyn's heart jumped. She went into the workshop and examined Harold's workbench. After a few moments, her fingers found a loose wooden panel. She pried it open. Inside was a thin envelope, sealed. She opened it carefully. Inside were printed emails between Melissa and an unknown address. Messages about property values, money transfers, and taking care of the final obstacle. The final obstacle. Evelyn's knees weakened. She sat heavily on Harold's stool, the weight of betrayal pressing down on her again. But this time, she didn't break. She didn't cry. She felt something else. Strength. For the first time since Harold died, Evelyn felt the shift, the turning of the tide in her favor. Her discovery was painful, but it was powerful. She had proof. She had allies. She had momentum. And she had a plan. Night settled over Evergreen Bay in quiet waves as Evelyn stood, her spine straighter than it had been in weeks. She gathered every piece of evidence and locked it away. Then she whispered into the dark, "I'm not afraid anymore, Harold. I'm ready." She turned off the workshop lights, walked back into the house, and closed the door behind her. The storm was coming, but this time, she wasn't the one who needed to fear it. Evelyn Cooper barely slept the night after her meeting with Dr. Ramirez and Deputy Marlowe. The house creaked with its usual sounds, but every whisper of wind against the siding made her flinch. The truth was unfolding, yes, but it was unfolding into something darker than she had imagined. She sat at the dining table in the early morning quiet, gripping a cup of tea she never drank. Papers were spread across the table, photographs, letters, financial statements, screenshots of emails. Evidence, proof, a map of betrayal. But the darkest twist had yet to come. Around noon, her phone buzzed. A text message from Melissa. "Mom, we need to talk. I'm coming over." Evelyn's stomach tightened. Deputy Marlowe's warning echoed through her mind. Don't be alone with your daughter. She stood, locked every door, closed every curtain, and waited. But Melissa never arrived. Instead, 20 minutes later, Evelyn received another message. "Forget it. I'll handle things myself." The words felt like a blade grazing her spine. Handle things? What did she mean? Evelyn grabbed her coat and keys with shaking hands. She didn't know where she was going at first, only that sitting in the house waiting for danger to arrive felt unbearable. Her instincts pushed her toward the one place she feared yet needed to face. Harold's workshop. The workshop sat behind the house, its roof rusted and its windows fogged from the salty air. Evelyn hesitated at the door, the scent of oil and cedar filling her lungs the moment she cracked it open. This place had once been Harold's sanctuary. Now it felt like the last remaining witness to his final days. She flipped on the light. At first glance, nothing had changed. Tools hung neatly on the wall, workbenches cluttered with half-finished projects. But as she walked toward Harold's old stool, she noticed something that shouldn't have been there. Fresh footprints in the dust. Small footprints, Melissa's size. Evelyn's heart slammed against her ribs. She moved slowly, aware she might not be alone. She scanned every corner, but the workshop was empty. For now. Her gaze landed on a small metal box on the highest shelf, a box she knew Harold never kept up there. She pulled it down, opened it, and inside found documents she had never seen. A second insurance policy. Melissa's name listed as primary beneficiary. Requests for expedited payout. A handwritten note in Harold's shaky penmanship. If Evie finds this, it wasn't an accident. Her knees weakened. She gripped the table to steady herself. This was the dark twist Harold had feared she would uncover. It wasn't just about property. It wasn't just about signatures. Melissa had planned everything, step by step, long before Harold died. As Evelyn stared at the papers, headlights flashed across the workshop windows. A car. Pulling into her driveway, her breath caught. She stuffed the papers into her coat and turned off the lights. She cracked the door open just enough to see Melissa's car pulling up fast, stopping crookedly. Melissa got out, pacing, frantic. Evelyn ducked back into the shadows. Melissa stormed to the house, pounding on the back door. "Mom, open up!" Evelyn held her breath. Melissa rattled the handle violently. "I know you're inside. Let me in." When the door didn't open, Melissa cursed under her breath, pulled out her phone, and began pacing in agitated circles. That's when Evelyn heard her. Melissa's voice, low, urgent, talking into the phone. "They know. The hospital knows. The cops know. I need to disappear, now." Evelyn's chest tightened. Disappear. She was going to run. "No, I can't go back for anything. I just need the cash." Yes, I'll meet you there. The motel on Highway 12. Her voice shook as she continued. "I didn't have a choice. Dad wasn't supposed to fight me. And Mom is making this harder than it needs to be." Evelyn's breath felt like ice in her lungs. Her daughter, her own flesh and blood, openly admitting everything. The escalation was happening right in front of her eyes. Melissa got back in her car, slammed the door, and sped off. Evelyn exhaled shakily, stumbled forward, and leaned her hands against Harold's workbench. Tears welled in her eyes, not just from fear, but from heartbreak deeper than she knew she could feel. Then she wiped her tears, pulled out her phone, and dialed Deputy Marlowe. "She just left," Evelyn said breathlessly. "She's running. She's going to Highway 12, the motel." Marlowe reacted immediately. "Stay inside, Mrs. Cooper. Lock everything. We'll pick her up." "No," Evelyn whispered, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm not going back inside." "Mrs. Cooper, I'm going with you." There was a pause on the line. "All right. Meet us at the station, but please, be careful." Evelyn ended the call. She slipped the documents deeper into her coat, stepped out of the workshop, and locked the door behind her. She didn't feel fragile anymore. Didn't feel lost. Didn't feel like a victim. She felt like a woman who had finally seen the truth, and that truth was going to protect her now. 30 minutes later, she sat in the back of a sheriff's cruiser as deputies headed toward Highway 12. Her hands trembled, but not from fear. From adrenaline. From the weight of everything she was about to confront. The motel came into view, a run-down building with flickering neon lights and doors painted the color of chipped mustard. Deputies stepped out quietly. Marlowe spoke into his radio. "Unit 3, suspect spotted, approaching room 16. Evelyn watched through the window as they surrounded the door. A deputy knocked. "Melissa Cooper!" "Open the door!" Silence. Then footsteps, fast, panicked. "Police! Do not run!" Melissa opened a back window, climbing out, only to freeze when she saw 2 more officers waiting. Her shoulders slumped, and just like that, it was over. Evelyn covered her mouth as tears blurred her vision, not tears of victory, but of the deepest sorrow a mother could feel. Her daughter was gone long before this moment, and now the law had caught what Evelyn could not save. As Melissa was handcuffed, she looked up and saw Evelyn in the cruiser. Their eyes met. Something shattered between them that could never be repaired. Melissa mouthed, "Why?" Evelyn whispered, "Because you left me no choice." Her voice broke, but her resolve didn't. Back in the cruiser, she stared out the window as the deputies secured the scene. The motel sign flickered overhead, casting the parking lot in an eerie glow. And in that glow, Evelyn felt the reality settle. She had survived the darkest part of the storm, and now others needed to see this story. To feel it. To know they weren't alone in their own storms. She whispered to herself, "If you're still here with me, if you followed this far into the darkness, tap like so this story can reach the ones who need strength tonight." The cruiser pulled away, and Evelyn Cooper closed her eyes, knowing the final chapter awaited her next. Evelyn Cooper didn't speak during the entire drive back from the motel. The sheriff's cruiser bumped gently along the quiet coastal road, the ocean stretching beside them like a dark and watchful witness. Street lamps glimmered off the wet pavement, painting thin gold streaks across the windows. She held her coat tight, feeling the documents hidden inside press against her ribs like a second heartbeat. It was over. Melissa had been captured. But as the cruiser pulled into the sheriff's lot, Evelyn realized something painful and hollow, something collapsing inside her more violently than the moment she first learned the truth. She hadn't just lost Harold. She had lost her daughter, too. The collapse wasn't loud. It was quiet, crushing, and complete. Deputy Marlowe opened her door. "Mrs. Cooper, you okay?" She stepped out slowly. "No," she whispered, "but I will be." Inside the station, the fluorescent lights hummed softly as officers moved with hushed urgency. Papers rustled, phones rang, doors opened and closed, but Evelyn heard none of it. She stared at the windowed holding room where Melissa sat, head in her hands, hair tangled, the confidence she once wore, now shattered like sea glass. Melissa lifted her gaze and locked eyes with her mother. The confrontation hit like a wave. Her daughter's expression shifted: hurt, rage, desperation, disbelief. Evelyn stepped closer to the glass, but she didn't go inside. She wasn't ready. Not tonight. Not like this. She didn't hate Melissa, not even after everything. That was the cruelest part. Love didn't disappear on command. It didn't dissolve when truth came out. It remained, bruised and trembling, even as betrayal hollowed it out. An officer appeared beside her. "Mrs. Cooper, we're taking your statement formally now. You don't need to see her." But Evelyn shook her head. "I need a moment." She placed her palm lightly on the glass. Melissa mirrored the gesture, her hand trembling violently. Her mouth moved. 4 silent words Evelyn recognized instantly. "Why did you do it?" Evelyn felt her chest tighten until it hurt to breathe. She mouthed back, "Why did you?" Melissa flinched. Tears spilled. She lowered her head again as if collapsing beneath the weight of her own choices. Evelyn stepped away from the glass. "I'm ready," she told the officer. And she walked forward, not because she felt strong, but because strength wasn't optional anymore. The next weeks moved like tides, slow, heavy, inevitable. Investigators examined the documents Evelyn had discovered, the loan applications, the forged signatures, the insurance requests. Harold's preserved toxicology samples revealed exactly what Evelyn feared: methanol, high concentrations, administered after Harold had already been injured and incapacitated. The case became airtight. Melissa had orchestrated everything with Bennett Clark's help, though Bennett struck a plea deal early, offering full testimony. As the trial date approached, Evergreen Bay's small-town calm splintered with whispers. People Evelyn had known for decades stopped her gently in the grocery store, offering condolences, casseroles, quiet strength. And through it all, Evelyn moved like a ghost, steady, polite, numb. The courtroom was small, with wooden benches and a view of the ocean through narrow windows. On the day of the trial, Evelyn sat in the front row. She didn't look at Melissa immediately. She didn't need to. She felt her presence in the room the way a mother always feels her children, even when they grow into strangers. The judge entered. Papers shuffled. Attorneys stood. Melissa was brought in. Evelyn finally looked at her. Her daughter looked small. Small in a way Evelyn had never seen. No makeup, no confidence, no fury, just a woman stripped of every mask, standing in the ruins of her own making. The prosecutor laid out the case with precision. Fraud, forgery, intentional poisoning, manipulation of medical staff, attempted theft of property, conspiracy with a real estate developer. Each word landed like a hammer. Evelyn kept her gaze steady, but inside she felt something collapsing further, a second grief layered onto the first. When Melissa was asked if she wanted to speak, she stood shakily. "I didn't mean for Dad to die," she whispered. I just needed the money. I was drowning in debt. I wanted a way out. I thought I could fix it later." Evelyn's heart twisted painfully. Fix it? Fix what? Melissa was crying now. Mom looked so helpless. "I thought if Dad were gone, at least she'd still have me. I didn't think she'd fight. I didn't think she'd change." Evelyn closed her eyes slowly. She had changed. Harold's death changed her. The truth changed her. Melissa changed her. "I'm sorry," Melissa sobbed. "Mom, I'm so sorry." Evelyn felt tears slip down her cheeks, not for Melissa's words, but for the little girl she once held, the little girl who scraped her knee on the boardwalk, who cried during storms, who begged Evelyn to check for monsters under the bed. There had been monsters, but they weren't under the bed. They had been growing inside Melissa all along. The judge read the verdict with solemn weight. Melissa Cooper is sentenced to 25 years in state prison for fraud, poisoning, and conspiracy. Evelyn didn't faint. She didn't gasp. She simply lowered her head, letting the finality sink deep into her bones. The confrontation was complete. The collapse was final. Now came the rebuilding. In the days that followed, Evelyn spent long hours walking along the shoreline where she and Harold used to dance at sunset. The wind tugged at her hair, the ocean sprayed salt on her face, and each breath she took felt both heavy and strangely cleansing. She had survived the storm. Now she needed to rise from it. She visited Harold's workshop, cleaned the dust, polished the tools, opened the windows wide. The light poured in, warm and steady. It reminded her of him. She ran her fingers along the wooden workbench. "I did it, Harold," she whispered. "I followed your trail." But justice alone wasn't enough, not for Harold and not for herself. She wanted something bigger, something lasting, something that turned pain into purpose. And so she created it. The Harold Cooper Foundation launched 3 months later, built from lawsuits, insurance payouts, community donations, and the land Harold once worked on. It provided legal aid for elderly victims of financial abuse, shelters and resources for seniors with predatory family members, workshops teaching older adults financial independence, a community center inside Harold's renovated workshop. People from all over Evergreen Bay came to volunteer, donate, participate. The foundation grew into a home, a sanctuary, for those who thought they were alone in the world. And Evelyn found peace there. One evening, as she locked up the community center, she paused at the doorway, looking back at the warm lights inside. Her breath softened. Harold would have been proud. She stepped outside into the quiet evening, listening to the waves roll gently onto the shore. For the first time in months, the wind didn't feel cold. It felt like a hand resting gently on her back, a whisper, a reassurance. She smiled through the softness gathering in her eyes. Then, into the peaceful night, Evelyn Cooper spoke the words meant for every heart listening. Thanks for listening. If Evelyn Cooper's story touched your heart, we're listening to bring more inspiring stories for mature audiences. You're not alone. Your voice truly matters.